In this video, I'm going to show you how to locate the planet Venus during the daytime. Now, the planet Venus is sometimes visible to the naked eye during the daytime, and sometimes not. Sometimes you need a pair of binoculars to see it. But I can show you how to do this using an astrolabe. And what you need in order to do this is a knowledge of what Venus's right ascension is, at least within the past day or so. So last night I took a sighting of Venus's right ascension and found that it was about 19 hours. Now, in order to use that information, I need to know what time it is. And, well, with an astrolabe, you can certainly find the time. You can either look at your watch and dial it into the astrolabe, or just take a quick solar sighting. So, let me do that. If you want details on this, you can certainly watch the other video where I've described how to do this. But briefly, I make a shadow on my clothing. That way I get a clear shadow, not looking at the sun. Align the pointer so that it looks perfectly in line with the sun. Right now I'm getting a reading of about an elevation of 30 degrees. Dial in today's date onto the outer ring of the astrolabe and dial in 30 degrees. So doing so, I find out that it's just after 1 p.m. And in fact, that is about the current time. So once I've done that, what I now do is then I look for the 19 hours, that being Venus's right ascension, and find where the ecliptic line intersects the 19 hours, and that gives me an elevation. Now, it's actually a little after 19 hours is what I've found it was, and Venus sometimes will move. So this puts my elevation line at about 20 degrees. Set your sighting pointer for 20 degrees then, because that's where Venus is located. The other thing you need to do, that's the elevation. I also need the azimuth. Now, I happen to know that due south is that direction, and you can read off the azimuth contours. So let's see here. I get 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, about 40 degrees, 35, 40 degrees. So off of due south. So 10, 20, 30, 40. That puts the sighting azimuth at about 140 degrees. So I'll line up the astrolabe with due south and sight across the center screw in 140 degrees. That puts it pretty much in that direction. And at 20 degrees, I can now sight and get a rough idea of where Venus should appear in the sky. This takes a bit of practice, and you need to typically sight it in the vicinity of some other objects. So I like to use the tree line to give me some references to keep in mind when I'm looking through the binoculars and have a limited field of view. One thing to realize is you want to make sure that you stay away from the sun. You don't want any sunlight coming into any of your optical instruments if you don't have the proper filters on. I don't, because the proper filters would make it impossible to see Venus. Additionally, the thinnest amount of haze will also make it very difficult to see Venus. So you want to do this on a perfectly clear day. Today is a perfectly clear day. So let's see. I've signposted about where Venus will appear. I can't see it without any optical aid, so I'm going to use binoculars. And the signposting usually takes a little bit of tricks to look, but basically you might have to go back and forth a bunch of times to locate things on the tree line and locate the elevation properly. But you should, after a few minutes, if it's visible, you should be able to find it. And I have a visual lock on Venus. It looks like just a tiny spot. Because of the fact that it's so small and there's a lot of extra light, focus is important. If you don't have your binoculars set to infinite focus from the outset, you might not see it if you're looking directly at it. At least here, we have the benefit that there is a lot of air traffic. So what I will do often is I will find an airplane and adjust my focus so that I get the airplane at distance. That gives me a pretty good spot, a good starting point about what infinite focus is. And so I can then indeed say, okay, there it is, I see it. So once you've visually seen it, now you need to transfer it over to something like a telescope. How do you do that? Well, I usually find the best way to do this is to slowly bring myself down so that I am in line with my finder scope. And then once I've got myself aligned with the finder scope, I can check the elevation, make sure that indeed the telescope axis is parallel to the right elevation. Looks like it's pretty close. And then sight through the finder scope, find Venus, and adjust. And so in this case here, you might have to scan around a little bit. There, I see it. You should be able to see it through the finder scope. Get it aligned. Looks like my declination is a little off. Okay. Got my right ascension and my declination. Venus is now queued up through the finder scope, and now I can switch to the main optics, and indeed there it is. During the daytime, Venus will actually look like a nice crescent, and this is on about 20 times magnification, and I can definitely see that there's a crescent shape. It's about 40% illuminated. But in that case, there it is. I've found Venus. The nice thing about this is now I've got a very accurate right ascension, so that I can use this for future observations as well. So if you have questions, certainly feel free to contact me, but I hope you enjoyed this video.